When the name Harry Potter is mentioned in any given group of Christians, there's usually a mixed response of cheers and jeers. This is a story that everyone has an opinion on, whether that opinion has been carefully researched or simply borrowed from an opinionated Christian community. However, people must let go of their prejudice against Harry Potter and recognize it for the amazing story of Christian theology that it is. People who form a false opinion about Harry Potter just based on what everyone is saying about it neglect their epistemic duties as human beings to have a justification for what they believe. In the next few minutes, the value of Harry Potter will be explored as we first recognize the issues with the perception of the novels, then look at the reasons that Harry Potter harbors not evil, but Christian sentiments. First, let's look at the issues surrounding the perception of the Harry Potter novels. Christian families segregate it from their faith and from their lives to avoid its evil influence. But by rejecting this amazing story of good versus evil, they miss an amazing opportunity to grow their faith and to connect with people. The rejection of these novels is basically undeniable. As soon as the novels came out, popes were calling it poison, and parents were calling for its ban from schools because they didn't want it influencing their kids. They believe that Harry Potter is inherently evil because the presence of magic signifies opposition to Christian beliefs. They fear that the occult resemblance in Harry Potter will draw their children to practice witchcraft in real life. However, this could not be farther from the truth. In a literature journal, Andreas Stiljokov says, "On the one hand, there are harsh critics who denigrate the story for supporting occult practices and witchcraft to the point of raising petitions for the complete censorship of the novels. Be that as it may, these critics are outnumbered by readers and reviewers who recognize a plot and a message suffused with Christian theology, fit for metaphysical, religious, social, or moral analysis, a convenient growing up story, or a catalyst which adults could use to explain more easily the normality and inevitability of death to children." Now that we've looked at the reality of this issue, I'm going to spend some time talking about what we need to do about it. Harry Potter needs to be accepted as a myth that conveys truth equally as much as Narnia or Lord of the Rings, and should be afforded equal study with the lens of the Christian faith. No one questions the nature of Narnia or Lord of the Rings, yet both contain at least as much magic as Harry Potter. People accept magic in these myths because there's a clear distinction made between good and evil. In Lord of the Rings, the race of the elves are inherently magical beings, yet are seen as one of the most purely good peoples in Middle-earth. They use their magic for healing and the protection of the heroes, such as when Arwen rescues Frodo from the evil race. There is also the presence of dark magic in Lord of the Rings, but it is made very clear that this type of magic is evil. There are users of dark magic and of good magic, and they are clearly in opposition, with the good always prevailing in the end. Harry Potter makes the same distinction between good and evil magic. In a journal on pastoral psychology, Leanne Simmons says that magic in Harry's world is not the opposite of theology. Rather, it is the opposite of technology. Muggles, non-magic people, drive cars. Wizards and witches ride brooms. Muggles use food processors. Magical people bewitch knives to do their dicing. Muggles use telephones. Wizards communicate with each other by throwing powder into a fireplace. There are no invocations of higher powers or deities to make such magic happen. There are no references to God, and there is no suggestion that evil comes from anywhere except human bigotry, duplicity, and lust for power. This is not to say that there is no evil magic in Harry Potter. That lust for power is certainly manifested in dark magic. But just as in Lord of the Rings, there is a clear distinction between the good and evil magic. Many critics will cite the resurrection of Voldemort in Goblet of Fire as evidence of the dark nature of the magic in the Harry Potter films. However, this is clearly represented as an evil that must be defeated. In C.S. Lewis's Prince Caspian, we see a similar scene where the dwarf Nickabrick tricks the prince into invoking the dead spirit of the witch. I don't know about you, but I find this scene pretty dark and disturbing, because it's supposed to be. As Christians, darkness and evil should make us uncomfortable. Seeing the evil side of magic only makes the good side all the more prevalent. Aslan exemplifies the good in The Lion Witch in the Wardrobe when he references the deep magic which caused him to come back to life.
She might have interpreted the deep magic differently.
No one has ever questioned the allegory of Aslan as the resurrection of Jesus. Everyone knows that the deep magic is a positive force which ultimately prevails in unwinding death, a theme which we will see later in the Harry Potter novels.
And even death itself would turn backwards.
Far from causing a desire to join the occult, Harry Potter provides a source of discussion for difficult theological concepts and influences positive Christian thought. As Simmons says, although Rowling has indeed laced together features of myth and magic, she presents no coherent alternative world that could promote intrigue with a supernatural evil other. In short, there is about as much Satan in Harry Potter's magic as there is in a fairy godmother's bippity-boppity-boo. One of the positive Christian messages that the stories portray is the reduction of prejudice. Albus Dumbledore exemplifies this when he says differences of habit and language are nothing at all if our aims are identical and our hearts are open. In a study done in 2015, kids' attitudes toward stigmatized groups such as immigrants, homosexuals, and refugees were tested to see how they were affected by Harry Potter. The study found that contact with the Harry Potter novels and identification with the hero caused a more positive attitude towards these groups. Another Christian ideal portrayed in the books is the battle between good and evil. As Christians, we recognize this as our daily fight, as the fight that Jesus Christ ultimately died to prevail in. This is prevalent on every single page of the novel. John Granger talks about this in his book Looking for God in Harry Potter. Rowling uses two of the Hogwarts houses to present the first layer, Gryffindor versus Slytherin. This struggle presents a picture of the battle between Christ followers and those who serve evil. From Slytherin came the main protagonist of the saga, Voldemort, the leader of the Death Eaters. His regime battles against the Order of the Phoenix. Again, we see a clear distinction between good and evil. Death Eaters represent the opposition to those who feed on the life of Christ. The Phoenix, also known as the Resurrection Bird, is a classic representation of Christ. Harry makes countless choices throughout the saga, which display the importance of the difference between right and wrong. One of the characters tells Harry, the world isn't split into good people and Death Eaters. We all have both good and dark inside us. What matters is the part we choose to act on. These books show, in an easily received way, the foundation of choices and the battle between good and evil that the Christian faith anchors itself in. Not only do Christians have nothing to fear in allowing their kids to read Harry Potter, but they should encourage it. The novels deepen understanding of Christian concepts and provide a gateway for deep discussion on difficult topics. So the next time you hear someone forbidding their kids to read Harry Potter, or degrading the story for its evil nature, don't let them live in ignorance. If you haven't read Harry Potter, do so with no spirit of cynicism. Pray that God would reveal himself through this myth that he has been gracious enough to give us. Some rate the stories as dark and evil, but this is only in ignorance of the story's nature and even the nature of God. For if we cannot believe that God would show himself in a story such as this, then we must think very little of God.
I'll let my kids read Harry Potter. It supports Satanism.
Well, actually...